Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Live Chat with James here at the ProPix Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Today, we're going to actually take a deep dive into the use of media by law enforcement agencies to increase transparency and also to help delve into cases and to get assistance from the general public in open cases. We also are going to take a look at a new program coming to our sister channel. Yes, True Crime and Justice TV.com. We will be launching, starting next week, a new series focused on cold case files to bring information about open investigations that have hit roadblocks and stalled over the years. So we'll be hoping that you can bring some closure to these files, maybe provide some information that could crack the case wide open for investigators. And again, you are always welcome to call in live to the show and give us your opinion, your thoughts, or just say hello. Whatever works for you, you can call in via telephone or WhatsApp. Yes, you can call in now at 1-368-997-6741. And we will move on with the program here. Coming up this week also on the other show, yes, Primetime Live, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Jess FM and Jess TV. We will be discussing this week in depth, introducing AI into your business model and using it in responsible way while maintaining ethics and, of course, liability avoidance. So we'll be talking about that on Thursday night on Jess FM. You can find that online at www.jessfm.ca. That's JESSFM.ca. Other than that, folks, we'd also like to, of course, give a shout out to our sponsor, Carry Movers, sponsoring yet another episode. Carry Movers is Western Canada's favorite long distance and local moving company in business, family owned and operated for over 2 decades. Carry Movers can be found online at www.karymovers.com. That's carrymovers.com. Again, providing local moving services within Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley. In addition to, of course, long distance moves throughout Western Canada, they've got all of your packing and moving covered if you require such. Give them a shout or get a free quote or estimate online. Now, moving along, folks, as I was saying at the top of the show here, we're going to be looking at the use of media in law enforcement, not only as a tool to get information and to bring tips in, but also to be able to offer more transparency, such as the case in the LAPD. They have taken to utilizing social media and platforms such as YouTube to get information out to the public when it comes to officer-involved shootings or other important investigations and cases that are of public interest. With that said, I wanted to just give you an idea as to how they are utilizing it to increase the interaction with the community. Now, we know that the LAPD has faced its challenges over the years. Of course, we know that ranges from the January 2025 bombshell investigations into the racism at the hiring level and in the hiring pool of officers, that, again, there were secret recordings and other media that was brought forward in that case where whistleblowers did speak about the very outdated thoughts and ideas of some of those officers. When you look at the opportunity, though, for the benefit of community good, we've seen a lot of technological advances, whether that is in dash cams or body cams, as well as the ability to reach out to the public in the masses worldwide through online social media and other platforms. We have also seen the ability to issue emergency alerts, whether that's Amber Alerts or wildfire evacuation notices and the like. Now, this has changed the way that a lot of law enforcement agencies communicate with the public. They, of course, have their media representatives, but the media reps and the media liaisons are much more savvy in the technical aspects of media than in the past, where they just spoke in front of the cameras to to the media representatives that were present. Now they take more of a proactive approach in getting the information out, as well as, of course, the video footage that is available. So let's take a look at one of the recent releases by the LAPD and how they use this to get information out to the general public. If again you have questions or you want to make comments on this episode or just in general, by all means, the phone lines are open at 1-368-997-6741. You can call in either on telephone or using WhatsApp. You can call in anytime you'd like. We are here to chat with you. So let's take a look at this current story from the LAPD.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Forkish, Public Information Director for the Los Angeles Police Department. This critical incident community briefing is intended to provide you with information about a critical incident that occurred in the city of Los Angeles. You're about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case, so you can have a better understanding of what occurred based on what we know right now. The LAPD conducts very thorough use of force investigations, which typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. We are still at the very early stages of this investigation, which can often take up to a year to complete, and our understanding of the incident may change as this additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. We also do not draw any conclusions about whether the officers acted consistent with our policies and the law until all the facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution. The images and information you are about to see may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for young children and sensitive viewers.
Hello, I'm Captain Alex Jogyoji, Commanding Officer of Media Relations Division of the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm going to provide you a brief overview of an officer-involved shooting that occurred on June 28, 2025 at around 10:50 p.m. Newton Area Gang Enforcement Detail officers were in the area of 42nd Place and North Avalon Boulevard, monitoring a known gang area when they heard the sounds of gunfire. As they drove towards the sound of gunfire, they saw a male suspect walking in the roadway armed with a handgun. The suspect was later identified as Ishmael Hernandez. As the officers stopped and exited their police vehicle, Hernandez raised his handgun and fired multiple rounds, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. A portion of this incident was captured on the responding officer's body-worn video. Body-worn video cameras are used by most officers assigned to field duties. They are worn at chest level and capture a general perspective within the line of sight from that angle. The angle of the camera prohibits viewers from seeing everything the officer saw and experienced. Upon activation, both audio and video will turn on. However, body-worn video cameras have a buffer of video without audio from the previous 2 minutes prior to activation. This feature is designed to capture incidents that occur suddenly, or an officer doesn't immediately activate the camera. Here is body-worn video from the officers involved in this incident. A portion of this incident was also captured on security footage by a nearby security camera. Hernandez was struck by gunfire, dropped the gun, and fell to the ground. Moments later, and after the arrival of additional units, Hernandez was taken into custody without further incident. Here is additional body-worn video from the officers involved in this incident.
I'm gonna grab this back, okay?
After being taken into custody, the officers rendered medical aid to Hernandez by placing him in a recovery position until paramedics arrived. Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics responded and transported Hernandez to a local hospital to be treated for the gunshot wounds he sustained as a result of the officer-involved shooting. While there, medical staff determined that his wounds would require further treatment and admitted him into the hospital. A victim who had been involved in a physical altercation with Hernandez moments before the officer-involved shooting was located nearby and also treated for a minor injury by Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics. Investigators ultimately determined that Hernandez had threatened that victim and fired a handgun in his presence at the onset of the incident. Investigators recovered a blue steel Rossi .38 special revolver at scene and booked it as evidence. The cylinder of the revolver contained 5 spent cartridge cases. Hernandez was arrested and absentee booked for assault with a deadly weapon firearm upon a peace officer. On July 1, 2025, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office filed the following charges against Hernandez: 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon firearm upon a peace officer, 2 counts of discharge of a firearm with gross negligence, 1 count of exhibiting a firearm in the presence of a peace officer, and 1 count of exhibiting a firearm. Ishmael Hernandez is a 35-year-old resident of Los Angeles.
In the next several months, the LAPD will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We will continue to interview any new witnesses who may come forward and complete any necessary forensic tests. After the investigation is complete, our Critical Incident Review Division will forward their findings to the Chief of Police, who will make his recommendation to the Civilian Board of Police Commissioners. The board will evaluate the evidence to determine whether the officer's tactics, drawing and exhibiting a weapon, and use of deadly force in this instance met the high standards expected of all LAPD officers. Additionally, the Office of the Inspector General will conduct a parallel and independent review of the investigation and will provide its recommendations to the board. If you would like more information on how the LAPD investigates all serious uses of force, visit lapdonline.org, where you can find the LAPD's use of force policy and procedures. Thank you for taking the time to view this critical incident community briefing.
So now, as you can see, they very much put the information out there. And a lot of times that is one of the critiques of law enforcement, is that the public is hearing about different incidents of officer-involved shootings or use of force, but they are not able to actually form their opinions based on facts. A lot of times it's from people who are sharing the information online. Now, the concern with that is that sometimes you get very biased or unclear vision of what happened at the scene. And this allows for a very clear and concise real-time accountability of the actions by law enforcement and the victims or the of the alleged assailants as well. So again, very important for the movement towards transparency. Now, we know that the LAPD has been caught up in some controversy as of late. However, it should be noted that the racist and sexist, misogynistic, and other officers who are the ones focused or the ones that are being focused on in the current ongoing investigation and actions represent a very, very small percentage of the LAPD officers that give their lives, or at least risk their lives every day, to keep the city safe. This same statement is true when you look at law enforcement from coast to coast in the US, and of course here in Canada, as well as other major locations around the world. Of course, there is some corruption. There are officers who shouldn't be carrying a badge or a loaded weapon. But again, they represent such a very small number of officers, but unfortunately, they are the ones that capture the majority of the mainstream media. This is a real time of change for law enforcement accountability when it comes to the use of body cams, when it comes to the use of dash cam footage, and of course the knowledge that almost everybody around is walking around with a camera ready to film or get photos of incidents as they happen. The importance of this is a substantial step forward for law enforcement accountability. And the Los Angeles Police Department, being one of the largest in the world and one of the largest in North America, of course, is a organization that has had its challenges over the years. I personally recall being in Los Angeles shortly after the riots in the early 90s and seeing how the city had to cope with the destruction that was left behind. The distrust between different parts of the community, and especially when it came to minorities and the LAPD. They have worked hard to rebrand themselves in terms of not only public perception, but actual involvement in the community and interaction in the way that they interact with members of the community as well. And it's been a long road. For those officers now that have been identified within the hiring section of the LAPD, that is very concerning and needs to be rooted out. Now, we can point to the LAPD because they are a recognized brand, and they really are a brand. They are seen as really a gold standard in law enforcement around the world. However, they are also coming with the downside of that being that they are a very visual force that people watch and they pay attention and they share it on social media. And again, the actions of very few officers are the ones that get the majority of attention online and in the media. So it's important that you try to understand that they have a job to do, that the majority of them are out there to make a difference in their communities. They have families that they have to get home to every day as well. And we want to see that happen where they return home as safe as when they left their home in the morning or evening, depending on their shift. So it's an essential part of law enforcement these days to be transparent, to follow up with investigations. But I think there's still a long way to go in terms of other law enforcement agencies or even the LAPD when it comes to use of force, when it comes to non-lethal rounds and options that are available. The LAPD is an early adapter of a lot of technology when it comes to non-lethal weaponry or non-lethal ways to incapacitate or to immobilize suspects. So again, it is important to notice that. When you look at Canada, for example, it's not just in the US where you see issues. We know that we have problems within the RCMP with, a lot of the school of thought, with old school officers still thinking that women don't belong in the force, that there is still racism and bigotry and other mindsets within the RCMP that don't belong either. But I would like to think that in today's society, not only are the organizations taking major leaps forward to try and battle this problem, but also individual officers who have had these outdated and archaic thought processes are actually learning more about themselves and more about others. But again, maybe it's just me wishful thinking. But regardless, here in Canada, again, we also have the phenomena where the police are really only seen in the media when it is negative coverage or when it's a big story. We don't see a lot of behind the scenes, whether they are holding community events or participating in them, when they're out there playing softball with the youth, when they're doing outreach programs to help the homeless. Instead, we see the negative sides. And I think that it's important for us to focus on the positive impacts of law enforcement, the positive facts, the positive ways in which they contribute to our communities. And remember that they are a part of the community. They live, they work, and they play in the communities in which they police a lot of times. They are your neighbors. They are, the parents of your children's schoolmates and so forth. So again, we've got to make sure that we keep that into context when we look at the officers patrolling our streets, whether it is South Central Los Angeles, Watts, Compton, Crenshaw, whether it's in Manhattan in New York or in Cabbagetown, Toronto. It doesn't matter. We need to make sure that we are supportive and really back the officers who are risking their lives to protect the communities every single day. Now, with that said, of course, there is also the concern of different crimes that go unsolved. And that is the premise of a new series. Of course, there are many different programs that focus on unsolved crimes and unsolved mysteries that air, whether it's traditional network television, cable television, or online. Now, of course, one of our sister stations here at ProPix TV is True Crime and Justice TV. You can find that online at truecrimeandjusticetv.com, and you can also find it online on other platforms such as Roku and Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and the like. So it's available worldwide. We are launching a new program coming up in just 2 weeks' time, a new weekly series on cold cases from the North. Here in Canada, there are many cold cases that have gone unresolved. Unfortunately, a lot of these crimes are people who were in vulnerable situations, whether that is Indigenous or Aboriginals, whether that is, people of other racial minorities. The reason why some of these are so hard to solve is because there are instances where they are on the streets. They're more transient. So people don't report them missing as soon as they are actually gone. And people assume that they've moved on to other areas or that they've just moved on to another region altogether. The other issue is when people are coming from other countries, whether it's immigrants and otherwise refugees or so forth, that get tied up, or whether it's tied up in crime themselves and suffer a final fate, as I'll put it politely or cautiously here. But also people that are really overlooked by society, and that could be, street workers or just the homeless. Again, very hard to track at times when they go missing. However, with that said, we want to visit some of the cases that are still unsolved and considered cold cases throughout Canada and try to bring some closure to those families and to educate the public on these different files that have really challenged officers for many years, if not decades. With that said, of course, they are still ongoing and active files. So therefore, if you do have any tips or information that you've never brought forward, or if you just want to confirm that the police have the proper information from an original report that you may have given information, you're always welcome to contact them. Each episode, we will, of course, include all of the contact information for law enforcement when it comes to making reports, but we'll also include the local or online links for you to contact Crime Stoppers if you wish to send tips anonymously about crimes that you may have potential information about. So again, that will be Cold Cases from the North coming up on the truecrimeandjusticetv.com platform. If you go online, if you're curious and want to look into different cases, I've brought the Vancouver Police Department's cold case website up as well, just to give you an idea as to how you can look if you have questions or if you're just curious about cold cases, or maybe you have some information about a cold case file and you didn't know how to forward any tips, then of course you can do so, but we will be covering that throughout the series. We'll be looking at a lot of cold case files from Canada or with Canadian links, and then we'll also include some international as well throughout the series. But for the most part, we'll be focused right away on Canadian files, trying to bring some closure to our fellow Canadians when it comes to cold cases. So let's take a look here. I just want to show you of course, different police departments in different regions have a completely different setup for their cold case files, if they have an online presence at all for them. But the Vancouver Police Department, I find, is very well laid out, and it's a great website to try and gain resources or information when it comes to forwarding information on cold cases, or just, as I said, submit tips in that online anonymously, whatever the case may be, or just to learn about cold case files as well, because you never know when something could trigger a memory and you come up with something that you've never really thought about before that could be significant in a case. And a lot of times also people who provide tips to the police, they have in their mind that it may be a very small bit of information that may not be much help at all. But when you take into account the number of tips that the police receive and all of that cumulative information, that little piece could be what weaves all of the other information together to give them a new direction or a new place to look, and potentially solving cases again that could go back decades. So again, never be shy to think that your tips may be, irrelevant in that. Let them know if you think you have information in any way related to cold case files. Just let the police know. Let them figure out if it's relevant or not, because again, it could be very small in your mind, but it could be very big to their case. So as you look at the Vancouver Police Cold Case website, it's very well laid out. You can actually look at some of the cases that are sitting in the cold case files. And again, there are a number of women who have gone missing. And unfortunately, some, I'm not saying all, I'm just saying some, were working in the adult entertainment industry or field, we'll say, is a polite way of putting it. And of course, the times have changed. Back in certain eras, it may not have been such a priority to solve those cases, and therefore they went by the wayside. And not that the officers didn't care; it was just that the less resources and the technology that we have today with DNA and other facets of law enforcement have really changed, and you may have something that could help further these investigations. Once again, as you can see, the Vancouver Police Department has many files that are open. And Mary O'Donnell, for example, from July of 1988, Mavette Monson, and she was reported missing, or this file, sorry, I should just say that. The file was opened on September 23rd of 2005. And again, the Pauls, homicide of a family going back to 1958. So hopefully there are still people that may have some recollection of even the smallest tips that could help to close the door on some of these files and to give some peace of mind to the surviving relatives. Melanie Thompson, a file from 2010. Craig Abrahams, a file from 1995. Karen Lee Taylor, a file from 1990. And again, we'll be looking all across Canada at different cold case files on truecrimeandjusticetv.com. And again, we really encourage you to be interactive with us. If you have tips, we encourage you to forward those tips to the proper authorities, and we'll include that contact information for each of the cases that we explore in the new series. We'll also provide you, as I said, with tips or links to their Crime Stoppers lines as well for anonymous tips and information. Now, if you take into account or take a closer look at the files, the way it's handled on the Vancouver Police Department's website, it's well laid out that you can click on each file or each case and get a bit more information about the overview of the crime and the case in itself. Of course, they don't want to release too much information because they don't want to jeopardize any type of movement in the investigation or to risk potential conflict when it comes time for prosecution if that should happen. But again, this as an example is Craig Abrahams, and it goes on to give you some information about the individual in the case. It is a brief overview, we'll say, but it's not really giving away too much details, but hopefully enough to jog someone's memory if they have any information. They also bring in locations, so you can now look at maps and figure out the important locations of the case. Now, this was 1255 Pendrell Street on December the 21st, 1995. So going back quite some time, but again, it gives you a very important area of which the crime happened. You can also take a look at some of the photos of the area to see if it maybe just jogs your memory from back in that time, because it's been a while since this case was opened, of course. And going on, they will also have in different files. We'll look at, for example, let's go back to this family here from 1958. Now, of course, media was not as savvy or technically advanced as it is today, but they do have some images of the area of the family and individuals who were attacked, including their daughter. Again, just a horrific crime that happened, and it could potentially be linked to Russia as well, but we don't know that for sure. But we will take a look at that case later in the series. So again, excuse me, that show will premiere starting in 2 weeks' time on truecrimeandjusticetv.com. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. It's just a overview as to how media is being increased in the apprehension or the dissemination of information from crime scenes and from law enforcement. How law enforcement agencies are trying to be more transparent and getting information out there in its rawest form. And that, as I said, has to do with not only the body cam and the webcams, but they also share community videos that may come from local businesses that have security cameras or doorbell cameras and stuff like that. So again, it's important to see and to recognize that a lot of law enforcement agencies are utilizing technology to increase the communications with the community, to increase the safety of the community, and it doesn't take a National Guard deployment to help to reduce crime in your city or town. Once again, you've been watching Live Chat with James here on ProPix TV in Vancouver, British Columbia. You are always welcome to send us messages, whether it's through the comment section here on this platform, or to send us an email, smile, S-M-I-L-E, at propixcanada.com. That's P-R-O-P-I-C-S Canada.com. Or, of course, you can always leave us a voicemail on the show's phone studio line, which is 1-368-997-6741. If there's a particular case that you would like to see us focus on in the Cold Case North files, then by all means let us know as well. You can find True Crime and Justice TV online. Again, truecrimeandjusticetv.com. And you can watch different documentaries, original, as well as links to other true crime shows. Once again, thanks for watching. And one more time, a shout out to our program sponsor or episode sponsor, Carry Movers Limited, providing local commercial, residential, and office moves in Western Canada's region of the Lower Mainland and Fraser Valley, in addition to all of Western Canada when it comes to long-distance relocations. You can reach out to Carry Movers for rates and quotes at www.karymovers.com. That's carrymovers.com. Thanks again for watching. Stay safe, everyone. See you tomorrow.